Welcome, everybody. It's Tamia from Lines Arise, and today I'm chatting with Corlia again. You'll remember her from our last talk that we had, okay? And so Corlia and I were in practice together in Cape Town in South Africa, and so we've walked quite a journey together. And today we want to discuss one of our favorite topics, and that is attachment. So for both of us, this has always been quite close to our hearts, and I can remember even in my studies, just the subject of attachment just jumped out and grabbed me, and just realized the importance of it, and also how important it is for parents to understand this concept, and also for us just going into life and even into adulthood. So with that, I'd like to just give Corley an opportunity to say hi.
Okay, hi. From a beautiful Cape Town. Hi. Hi, Tammy.
You're very blessed. So, Corlia, tell me a little bit about attachment, like for you. What stood out for you the most with attachment?
Sure. I think that, I adjusted my intake form, the biographical, and I added to that a sort of a sheet with questions about childhood, but it's like random questions. So it's things like one word for your mom, one word for your dad, and how did you deal with sadness when you were little? And it's about 20 questions. And from that, you get a very good picture of how the person was taught relational skills, which I think is basically attachment. So the picture is that before you even enter grade 1, where they teach you about language and maths and writing and reading, you're already in a school for 6 years. And this is the school where you, by modeling your parents and receiving comfort and love, and see how they deal with emotions and how you are allowed to deal with emotions, and are you celebrated, and all that kind of concepts. It's like a school where you are taught relational skills. So, and that's the kind of lessons that's so it's so part of you that you don't even know it's there, but it will inform your relational interaction for the rest of your life, your marriages, your friendships, and that's attachment. So to answer your question, when I explain it to clients, I say to them, it's the school of relationships. So it's the school where you were taught how to view yourself, how to view other people. Are you with celebration, comfort, that kind of thing? And from that, you will one day do relationships. Yeah. So it's a very, as you know, very complex and broad and rich theory. But I try to, when I explain it to clients, that's how I explain it.
Yeah. So it's like something that's really going to. So if you can understand your attachment styles from childhood and how that formed. You're going to understand also then how you're going to attach in your adult relationships, and why there's dysfunction in the relationship. Because our attachment styles are going to impact the way we expect to receive love, receive whatever it is that we need from our adult relationships.
Yeah. And how we give. Yes. And to us, it's going to be as normal as the language we were taught. It's like, this is how it's done. What do you mean you want me to whatever?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Because I was never taught that.
So for those that are watching and listening, that don't know what attachment is, I'll just give you a quick definition. So John Bowlby is kind of the father of attachment. He did a lot of research. John Bowlby, Mary Ainsworth, they did a lot of research around attachment, and the theory actually comes from his work. And so his definition is that attachment is a deep and enduring emotional bond that connects one person to another across time and space. He goes on to say that attachment does not have to be reciprocal. One person may have an attachment to an individual which is not shared. And attachment is characterized by specific behaviors in children, such as seeking proximity to the attachment figure when upset or threatened. Attachment behavior in adults towards the child includes responding sensitively and appropriately to the child's needs. Such behavior seems to be universal across cultures. So in short, attachment theory explains how the parent-child relationship emerges and influences subsequent development. So we also know, Claudia, from experience, that a lot of behavioral disorders, a lot of dysfunctions that can develop in a person's life actually starts with attachment. It starts that the baby comes out of the womb. So I always say also attachment, this is how I'd explain it, it's just that bond that you have with your primary caregiver. If that bond is not secure, insecurities are going to develop, things are going to pop up later on that are going to be dysfunctional. And I really think very few of us are securely attached. I don't know what you have to say about that.
I agree with you. I actually, in my, I run a depression and anxiety support group at the moment. We've, as you know, we did it together, and I'm doing one at the moment. And yesterday, I actually had a list of 27 characteristics of a securely attached person, and I typed it out from a teaching I listened to, or a training we went to. And it was very, very interesting. And people were like going like, oh my word, I'm 4 out of the 27. So it's things like, I can name 5 things I'm good at and 3 things I'm not good at, and it's okay. It's things like that. I can honestly explain what I feel, and I don't get anxious when I have to share that I'm not happy. So it's things like that. And it's so interesting. While I was reading through it, I went, oh my word, okay, I battle with that one. And I can absolutely trace it back to why. Because when I grew up, that was very interesting. I agree with you. We're not. None of us are.
Yeah. But also science shows that by the age of like 18 months with a baby, in the brain, the neural pathway has already formed that's going to inform that child's adult relationships. It has already formed. And so the way that child's going to look at the world, the way it's going to experience relationships already starts at such a young age. And also what we need to understand is that, we spoke now about the styles. So we get different styles. So we get secure attachment, we get anxious, preoccupied attachment, we get avoidant, dismissive attachment, avoidant, fearful attachment. So these are all the different styles we have. So I'll quickly just give like a lay version. So secure attachment, it's relatively easy for me to become emotionally close to others, and I am comfortable depending on others and having others depend on me. I don't worry about being alone or having others not accept me. That's secure attachment. Anxious, preoccupied. I want to be completely emotionally intimate with others, but I often find that others are reluctant to get as close as I would like. And I'm uncomfortable being without close relationships, but I sometimes worry that others don't value me as much as I value them. So, and what this often you'll see in codependent type relationships, where the one person's more needy than what the other one is, or they need more from the person, or there's an abusive relationship and the person that's anxious, preoccupied will keep trying to get that person's attention, will keep trying to please them, will want to make things happy, even if it's harmful for them.
Yeah.
Do you want to add something to that?
No, it's exactly that. And then, I think just to get back to to translate this into therapy. So, if you understand that, so you can either try to tell the person white knuckle it, change your behavior, or you can help them to understand where it comes from, that it was actually a primal, whatever the message was that they got growing up, and that it comes from there, and then focus on, work on the time when the message was given to them. What makes you so anxious and so needy and so pleasing? And to help them to recognize how this plays out in their lives today. And if they click that, I think then there's a chance to change it. But to try and go, to sort of plaster it from the top, that's what I love about attachment. To just add to that is that it goes to the roots, it goes to the bottom. It works bottom up.
Trace that, right? So if you've got that anxious, preoccupied kind of attachment, you're going to trace it back. What I like to ask my clients, when we're dealing with stuff like this, is what does it remind you of?
Mm.
Where,
And you know, people can do it.
and where
They
does
can
that
do it.
thought go? Where does that thought
Yeah,
take you? Oh, when I was
yeah,
a child, this and this happened.
yeah,
So we look at those unmet needs from
yeah.
childhood that turn into these wounds that they're constantly trying to fill in adulthood, in their adult
Yeah.
relationships.
And you know, Tammy, I don't know about you, but I find most people can actually make that jump. The minute they understand what it is that you're asking, they can actually go, flip, you're right. I can jump. I can see the link. I can jump back. I remember when I was a and that's fantastic, because if they make it, then you know it's not. I don't. It doesn't come from the therapist. They actually have starting. They develop the ability to start making those connections.
That self-insight and self-awareness into how they're operating, how their programming works, because it's kind of all linked to programming.
Yeah, it is programming.
Right.
Yeah.
So the third style I've got here is avoidant dismissive, which is I'm comfortable without close emotional relationships. It's very important to me to feel independent and self-sufficient, and I prefer not to depend on others or have others depend on me. So for me, this kind of attachment style, I think, is very much linked to that feeling of growing up where nobody's got my back. I have got to take care of myself. Nobody's there for me. Close relationships equal pain. So I'm going to be slightly
Shame, very shameful.
whatever it's linked to. There's going to be that dismissive, avoidant. If I stay away, I'm not going to get hurt. If I stay away, I'm safe. If I stay away, I'm protected.
Yeah, because if I show my emotions, I'm shamed or ridiculed or told to calm down, shut up, go away, whatever, shut it down. Mm-hmm. And if it happens over and over and over again, you start almost fearing this thing that bubbles up inside of you, because it just leads to pain, emotional pain. So you start pushing it down. Especially,
and then you can,
if there's ridicule, I find
place where you might feel sorry that you're no good in relationships. So you avoid relationships because when you get into a relationship, there's pain, and sometimes I think there's a confusion depending on the wounds from childhood, whether it's you or the other person.
Yes.
So even if you think it might be you, you might be avoidant, because if I get into this relationship, what's going to happen? I don't know what you feel about that.
Yes, no, absolutely, absolutely. The confusion thing, definitely. And that's why I have a pet hate in Dr. Google and these sort of one-liners where it says people should love me for who I am. You know, those one-liners, because it's not that simple. It's not that simple. And to understand the complexity of your response to somebody else who's also complex in their response, and to have grace and and then to almost understand this is why we dance the way we dance. I pull away when you come too close, and I come too close because I've got this massive gaping trauma wound in my heart. I need. And it's actually two people who love each other, but they're dancing in a like a reverse tango.
It's a power struggle, hey. It's a
power struggle.
And also, just what you're saying, that just empathy comes to mind for me. It's hard for us to actually understand the way other people are if we cannot step into their world and experience a little bit of what they went through, how they're experiencing life, and they interacting because of that. So it's easy for us to dismiss people that seem difficult or not easy to have a relationship with, but what is behind that? That is the question.
Yeah, I watched a teaching from Gabor Mate. He's a Canadian clinical psychologist, I think, and he talks a lot about. He actually says that attachment is a primal need. It is so primal. It's the same as our need for oxygen and water and food, and it's so primal. It's nobody's going to walk away from it or turn away from it as a little baby. There's a reason why you avoid relationships or why you find it scary or difficult. Because naturally primarily you have this massive need for it. You're born with a need for it.
And you're wired,
And if it,
love, acceptance.
we're wired like that. And if you as a grown-up find it hard to attach and to relate, then there's a reason. Something happened along the way. It's not, and to have understanding for that.
So our fourth style is avoidant fearful. Okay, I'm somewhat uncomfortable getting close to others. I want emotionally close relationships, but I find it difficult to trust others completely or to depend on them. I sometimes worry that I will be hurt if I allow myself to become too close to others. And so if you look at the avoidant fearful and avoidant dismissive, they're quite closely linked to each other, where the one has got more a defensive characteristic to it, the dismissive avoidant, and the other one's got the fearful, just the fear of the relationships. And like, even if we work with marriage, I mean, I'm sure you can relate to this, how often we see couples that sit in front of us and they've got all this stuff going on. And actually what they don't realize is they have absolutely no understanding of how the other person's been wired according to their attachment styles and the way they were raised in their family of origin.
Absolutely. It's like, and even if I find that even if we only get to a place in the sessions where they understand that, it makes a difference. And then it becomes a choice. Am I going to bulldoze that, or am I going to have grace for it? Am I going to allow and have grace for the other person to be this, to understand that this is your wounding, and that when I said I do, I didn't know it at the time, but I was saying I do for your attachment style as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I know we both love the book How We Love, and
yes.
I encourage whoever's listening and watching to get hold of this book, because it really helps to outline, and you can actually go online and do the quiz to show you what are your, and the book is actually based on attachment, and so it's got its own names for the different styles, but it really helps couples to understand how they interact with each other and the core patterns that constantly, like the dance that you spoke about, that constantly play out in those things. And if we look at the dance, so we know we often talk about the fear dance. So the fear dance with couples often comes in, and sometimes I don't think it's only with couples, I think you can see it in families. Yes. So there's always one pursuing and there's one isolating. So we've got the pursuer and the isolator. There's the one that needs love, that needs attention, that needs something, and then we've got the other one running away for whatever their stuff is. And so that's what we've got going on all the time. But the problem is with both of these, there's a fear. The one is a fear, the pursuer has a fear of not having closeness, not having attachment. And the isolator has a fear of too much closeness.
And you're going to see me, and you're going to see who I really am, and you're going to maybe not love what you see, because as a child, that was what they,
so you've got this going on in the relationship all the time, and these are the things that we need to start learning about our partners. What are you running from? What are you isolating from? What are you pursuing? What is the need you're expecting to get met in that relationship that wasn't met as a child? Because sometimes the expectation is unnatural as well. It's too much. There's too much of an expectation there, or a standard that you've put onto that, and you're not going to get it.
You're going to be ever disappointed almost. And it's interesting, Tammy, I find if the avoider is somebody who was walked in shame, so to feel and to be who I am, authentically me, was ridiculed or rejected, so there's shame. I find that they avoid, because they almost have this underlying belief that if you see who I really am, you're not going to love me anymore. So I would rather just keep my distance so that you don't see all of me, because you might just agree with my parent or caregiver or wherever I got the message from, that being who I am isn't okay. So again, Gabor Mate, he makes the comparison, and he says the need to attach is very, very strong, but the need to be authentically who you are is also very, very strong. But should the two be in competition, so I can't be authentically me, because if I do, my dad's not going to, I won't have attachment, my dad's not going to give me what I need from him or my mom, then we will push down authenticity as a child. And we will rather be whatever you want me to be, so that I can please just attach to you. But then when we grow up, there often comes a day where we go, stuff this. This is who I am. I can't pretend anymore. And then it comes out often very destructively, in a destructive way. Nobody's going to change me the way. And you don't even know that it's you bleeding over the people who didn't cut you. It's almost a response to that 5-year-old or 3-year-old or 4-year-old who couldn't be who he was or she was. And it's like a massive pushback that often comes at a later age. And it's so complicated. It's much more complicated than just, I'm having a midlife crisis, or it's
yeah,
not.
and you know what it is
that as well, but it's
for me. It's like it's identity, right? It's a loss
yeah,
or a lack of identity.
yeah,
If we look at Freud's
yeah,
stages, Erickson's stages of role confusion
yeah.
versus identity.
Absolutely.
That authenticity it's who we are, and if we never nurture the way that we can find who we are, be allowed to explore who we are, because when we're in those kind of relationships, we're not given freedom. We're not freedom to be who we are, because we can't constantly living up to other people's expectations, and then we lose ourselves. We lose who we are in all of that.
Yes, and then it's very difficult to figure out who you are at 50. I think it's one of the saddest things for me when I have people, once they trust me, sit in front of me and say to me, you know what, I have no idea who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know. I've been doing this job for 40 years, 30 years, 20 years, and I hate it. I don't know why I'm doing this job. I remember when my son eventually, it's a long story, but when he chose a very interesting career, and we were a little bit puzzled as parents. Somebody said to me, he knows at 21 or 22 what he wants to do, at 18, how old, before he went to study. And I'm 50 and I don't know what I want to do. And I was like, wow, what a sad statement. So it's that, yeah.
So on the
I'm just sorry, Tammy. So I also think you touched on something there. I think attachment also links in with Erickson. So when I do the attachment, I always have the Erickson timeline with me, because I think it's phenomenal.
So on the note of Erickson's, for those that don't know who Erickson is, so Erickson developed the 8 stages of man, and it's a psychosocial development theory. And what I really like about this theory is that at each age stage, there's a conflict that we need to negotiate. And if we don't negotiate the conflict successfully at that stage, there's a struggle moving on and successfully negotiating the next stage. So if we look at the first stage, it's trust versus mistrust. Can I trust the world? That is in 0 to 2 years. 2 to 4 years is autonomy versus doubt and shame. So the existential question is it okay to be me? 4 to 5 years, the crisis is initiative versus guilt. The question is it okay for me to do, move, and act? In 6 to 12 years, it's industry versus inferiority. Can I make it in the world of people and things? 13 to 19 years, it's identity versus role confusion. This is the important stage. Who am I? What can I be? And then, early adulthood, 20 to 24. It's intimacy versus isolation. So how do I develop my relationships? And the question is, can I love? And then as we get older, so the next stage would be, can I make my life count? And then we get to old age. Is it okay to have been me? And I think this is what we were talking about just now, is you have people that come and sit in front of you and they go, is it okay to have been me? Have I done everything I want? Have I had a successful life? Have I had a productive life? Have I got something to show for my life? And so we see how all these stages kind of build upon each other. And so if we can just successfully negotiate from the one to the other, we can almost get close to optimal development. But in all of these stages, we need relationships in all of them, from the very first stage
Yeah, absolutely.
right to the
Yeah.
end. Yeah. So if we need to be able to know how are we interacting in relationships, are we gathering support in relationships, are we pushing people away, are we creating our own isolation? So to come back to what you said about shame, so shame brings alienation, because we alienate ourselves from whatever it is that makes us feel shameful or might trigger whatever it is that's gone on. And the thing is, when we alienate ourselves, we contract. We make ourselves smaller and smaller and smaller, and that means our world becomes smaller. You know, it's a total opposite of being and belonging and actually being part of something.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. It's almost like a slow death, I think.
Yes. Yeah. A lonely, slow death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be with we relational creatures, so it's impossible. It's there where you need to be brave, step out.
So let's talk about children. So I know you work a lot with children. And we both, when we work together, we'd often speak about developmental trauma and how you can actually see how the attachment styles, those early attachment styles, actually feed into a lot of developmental trauma, depending on what's going on in the home. So when you work with children, what are some of the things you see the most?
Well, first of all, I want to work with the parents, not the child.
Yes.
Sorry, but
Yes.
really. Yeah, because if you also look systemically, you know, what you're looking at, if you look at the system with the child, it's that classroom, relational classroom that's happening still. And this child is still, you know, especially if they're very young, like a sponge, and they're taking in, this is how you deal with conflict. This is how you, so I had a mom the other day who said her 3 or 4-year-old came home, was very upset from something that happened at school. I think the masks, he didn't like the mask. And she took it off, had him on his lap for 45 minutes and just rocked him. And he was going on and sobbing, and she just loved him and rocked him. And then 45 minutes later, he sat up and he said, okay, mommy, I'm okay now. And that was it. And, you know, she said to me, she missed a client. She works from home, missed a client in the process, and it was very difficult for her, and she got into trouble. And it was like, wow. So what she basically chose there was to teach her son emotional regulation. That it's okay to feel, it's okay to be upset, and when you do feel upset, there will be somebody there who will love you despite the fact that you're upset.
Yes. To calm.
You don't have to push it down, conform, push down the authentic emotions that you're feeling. It's okay. And I still love you, and I still respect you, and I will still celebrate you, and I will laugh with you, and, you know, cuddle with you, and whatever. And so it was to me a beautiful example of. You know, and if you look at the big picture in the timeline, it's 45 minutes, but it was such an important lesson.
Child.
So for the child, yeah. So children, attachment, massively. I find that parents that's why I always include I do attachment assessments, just to get a picture of the attachment style. And then I always include a parent feedback where I try and give them a picture of this is what I see. This child is very anxiously attached to you. He's got these questions in his heart, and to guide him, because I can't fix for an hour a week at the practice what they can actually, you know, without them almost taking my hand and working at home. I find that's kind of how I approach it. I find that children who battle with attachment make their friendships become very, very important to them, but almost to a level of where it becomes a problem. So they will be very pleasing in friendships, or they will be absolutely distraught if a friend is not nice to them. So it's almost like their friendships, the parents will also say to me, their friendships rule them.
Codependent type relationships.
Already. Yeah. You know, and they will do anything for these friends to just be there for them. And that's because of the attachment deficit, I believe. You know, and if it's the wrong friends, obviously, then, you know, you'll do anything to go along. And then I always think you take that pleasing, needy behavior into adulthood, and into relationships, you know, yeah. So that attachment to me is very clear. It's almost less muddled when it's a child. You know, you can still see it very clearly. When we get older, I think we kind of model, and we hide, and but with
Yeah.
children, it's quite clear.
Yeah. Yeah, and also a lot of disorders and labels that get put on children is actually just linked to attachment. It's
Absolutely.
So even things like bipolar, autism spectrum, ADHD, a lot of actually just linked to the attachment styles. I mean, I often will have parents like, I can't manage this child. This child is so difficult. You know, there's just, I can't do anything. But once you go in to have a look at the parenting style, so this is what I like to do is, first of all, look at the parent's attachment style, do an attachment assessment with them. What is the child's attachment style? Okay, here's where the differences come in. But then also just to look at what is actually taking place in the home. How are the interactions? Are you trying to attach to that child the way you expect attachment to be, because this is what you, so again, let's look at even love languages comes into play. We want to love people the way we loved, instead of loving them on their level, what they need to fill their love tank. And so there's always going to be a deficit if we don't understand how people give and receive love. Right?
Definitely. Yeah. So it all ties in, and when we start doing attachment repairing of the attachment, then I always include the love languages, because it's important to understand. And you know, Tammy, it's phenomenal. It sometimes takes just 1 or 2 adjustments, just working half day on a Friday and making date night on a Tuesday night with my child, or whatever, small things, and then speaking their language. Relational language, and it's amazing, the feedback. It's good. It's love.
It's one-on-one. Yeah. That's what they need. We all need that, right? We need quality time. We need one-on-one attention. See me, hear me, acknowledge me. You know, we all need that, and especially for children, that is so important. Because you spoke earlier about messages. We receive these social messages growing up. And what we're perceiving in our environment and what we're receiving from other people is totally going to inform whether I'm lovable, whether I'm safe, whether I'm cared for, I'm accepted, I'm approved, or whether I'm understood. You know, and we get this maladjusted type of a thinking that comes around insecure attachment. So we'll go into every relationship doubting our worth, not understanding how people are looking at us. We're always assuming, so these are where the cognitive distortions come in. We're assuming all the time, we're mind reading, we're jumping to conclusions about how other people perceive us because of the way we've learned to perceive ourselves because of our relationships and the way others are related to us.
And it's projection then. So you actually have a deep sense of shame. And anything I do will trigger, you know, I can just be remotely whatever, and you will internalize it as shame, and you'll think it's me, but it's not. It says, so it's the iceberg. It's that iceberg picture, you know, above the water. You see, in children, I always give that to parents. You see the defiance, you see the anger, the distractibility, but under the water there is, am I loved? Am I fun? Am I okay? Can I be who I am? Can I say what I want to say? Can I express myself? You know, that kind of thing. And we tend to look at what's above the water and deal with that. So put them on a tablet, or send them to a special school, or be more strict or be less strict. But you have to go to the heart. And if the heart is healed, the behavior will change. That's right.
And you know, for you and I that are both also not only do psych work, but we also do inner healing and deliverance, we know that on a heart level, spirit, soul, body, trauma can create so many fractures, and you can always trace trauma back to early years, whether it came in at the womb through conception, generational trauma, whether it's been during childhood, depending on what's been happening in the home. We see this coming all the time, and so we can't only look at it on at face value. We have to dig deeper to see what is the underlying stuff that's going on, and work on that. What's happening in the heart? What needs to
and it's sometimes small, isn't it? I mean, I don't know if you find that. It's sometimes the smallest thing, like
one memory.
And it's something you go, wow, you know, the enemy, is so sneaky. It's like just one thing. I love Brené Brown, and she has this podcast on trust, and she says that trust and I suppose attachment is built by small insignificant gestures, but hundreds of them. So it's not the once a year my dad took us on holiday and it cost him a lot of money, but we didn't see him for the rest of the time. It's not that. It's a small it's putting me on me on your lap for 45 minutes when I had a bad day at school about a mosque.
Yes. It's sitting under the tree with me and having a tea party.
And not on your phone. Look at me. Yes. Play Lego with me.
That's the big thing, hey? Now is also technology. Parents are distracted. Children are distracted because they get given devices because parents are busy on devices. And we know even in itself, devices and development sometimes don't go hand in hand at all. It disrupts that. To come back to just looking at the heart and how we work with inner healing, it brings up the subject of attachment to God, doesn't it? Because if we are securely attached to God in our relationship with God, how well does that help us to cope with life? It's like
how you cope with life without
the whole part of inner healing for me is just getting people to be reconnected to who God is, what He means to them as a father, that He loves them. And how many people are walking around with parent wounds that cannot attach to God in that healthy way because they see Him as that parent.
The strict father, I can never please him.
I can't please you.
And it's interesting, I don't know if that's your experience, but people will always, often, I have found that people will say, no, I'm okay with God, we're good. And then you start going in and you really start peeling the onion, and then you realize they can't turn to Him, they can't invite Him in, they can't put the question to Him. And then if you say why, they go, I don't know, I don't think I'm going to like what He tells me, or I don't think He likes me very much, or then it comes out, and it's so hard, and then you understand a lot of things. Yeah.
So often, when we work with memories, we bring Jesus into that place to bring the healing that needs to take place. And often I find that they say, I don't want Him here. I don't want Him close. And then we're not dealing with that person on an adult level. We're working with the inner hurt child, some part that's fractured, and they don't want Jesus there because where was Jesus when I needed Him?
Yes, absolutely.
Where was God? He wasn't there.
Absolutely.
So sometimes He can come into the memory, but He mustn't come too close.
He must not look at me. He must look ahead. I worked with a lady the other day. It was so sad. So lost her son, and she said, you can sit with me here, but don't look at me, don't talk to me, you can just sit here. And I said, okay, and then we'll do that. So we did that. And they sat. And I said to her, so next time maybe, and I hope when she comes back that things, because I prayed into that. But so, just
to bring them closer, because, our healing really only can come from God as a source. He's the healer. And I know we have a lot of valuable psych tools that we can use that work. But in the end of the day, I just find that going on a spiritual level and working on that level brings much more lasting healing, because the other stuff depends on consistency, how do we change the brain, that consistency, that they have to follow up on things, homework's got to be done, they got to work on things. But sometimes God can just come in and put His finger right in there. And in one session, you blow open everything that's happened in that person's life. And then they go, wow,
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I know we spoke about this before. I find in counseling that, so it's very often 2 sessions of counseling, and then you have a inner healing session, and it's like, whoa. And then almost 2 sessions of counseling to chew on this, or one, just to chew on it, and to kind of make sense of it, and to I always say to him, so we need to rearrange your cupboard now. The denims can't go on the left anymore, because we now understand the denim. So can we put them at the bottom of the drawer, and can we Let's move the jerseys to the top because we now want them at the top. So it's almost like just a shuffling, and then, okay, wow. I love, so it's like a cleaning up. I often find, yeah, it's important.
Yeah, I like to think in terms of for me, it's like, I don't know, just probably because of a lot of the work I've been doing is just in terms of programming. It's like you're reprogramming, right? Switching off those old programs that are running, that are dysfunctional and maybe outdated, because they actually don't work for you anymore. Okay, so we need to readjust that, switch off that program, and let's start working on a new pathway. You know, we look at those pathways that need to become, we've got this highway going that we're on all the time because of our learning, our modeling, whatever it is, and that highway is sometimes not the right way to be on. So we have to close the highway and form a new byway and keep working on that one until that becomes the new highway. So that our pathways are actually running in the right direction.
Yeah.
We can get back onto the path we need to be on. Because I really feel, you know, like when people go off the path that God actually intends for us from the beginning, where we're supposed to get to a place of secure attachment with Him, or an attachment with Him. It doesn't have to be secure in the beginning, but just get to that place. The enemy will come in. And because of our early years, he'll maximize the potential there for destruction.
So,
because of the doors that have been opened, of all those relationships that have been dysfunctional, that have fed us the wrong message. And he'll just grab that to push you off God's timeline onto a counterfeit timeline where you're just running in life all the time on, there's no fulfillment, there's no joy. We keep ending up in relationships that aren't good for us. We keep ending up in the wrong places. And that's where the door opened.
Yeah, so
yeah,
that's actually true. Yeah, so to keep in mind that there's an enemy in all of this. The
spiritual side to what's happening, you know, and so I mean, even just on a psych level, dealing with attachment with people is very helpful. It's extremely helpful. Just
it is extremely
identify the defensive mechanisms that are formed as children, where relationships equal either a painful loss of contact or painful contact. So, but there's pain for either. Every time we have contact, there's pain, good or bad. So, and then we develop these mechanisms to cope with it. There the isolator comes, there the pursuer comes, the person that's got those maximizing traits, the person that's got the minimizing traits, and we just see all of this come together. So, I guess to sum everything up, what would you say?
Sure.
Sorry, I'm throwing you in there.
That's fine. That attachment is a primal need, and it's an inborn primal God-given need. And if you can get that as healthy as possible, or at least get insight into your wounding in that area, it informs or explains a lot of your relational problems later in life. And for parents to understand how incredibly important it is, especially those first 2 or 3 or 4 years, to just focus on attach, celebrate, and send the message that you're amazing, we're so happy you're in this world, and that you're ours, and that we enjoy your company. It's because that's what the message is, or should be. And I think, I don't know if, we live in such a fast world where there's such a lot of anxiety and demands on parents financially and on their time, that I think it's an attack on attachment in the end, isn't it?
It's the father heart, right? It's taking people away from the father heart. And I think that's where what the whole aim of this is that people just can't connect.
Yeah.
And parents, so my leave with parents would be, I heard a teaching from Derek Prince. I love Derek Prince's stuff, but he said the one day, and I had to laugh because I know we sometimes talk about this, you don't get delinquent children, only delinquent parents. And it's like, And it's not to knock parents, guys. We've all made mistakes in our parenting. But if we can actually realize as godly parents what our role is in raising children, we are raising children that are the next generation, that need to lead the next generation. And we're supposed to be a godly role model for them. What are we imparting? What are we doing?
We're raising husbands, we're raising fathers, we're raising
Wives.
Employees, employers, wives. So lift your eyes from the 4-year-old throwing the tantrum, or the 9-year-old acting out, or the 12-year-old who doesn't want to, and just step back and say, I'm raising a parent, a father, a mother, a husband, a wife. And so something I see is a lot of learned helplessness. So parents step in and fix with them. So does a husband need to be able to not be helpless? Yes. So don't teach your child helplessness. Does a father need to be not helpless and be safe and strong? And yes. So don't give your child the opportunity to develop that. It doesn't help if you make it go away, make the problem go away.
So it's having a future focus
of
what you're raising, right? Yeah. What is it that's being raised in? I mean, and many of us, we're born with callings. So is how you're raising your child that design that God has for them? Are you following that blueprint? And that's also where we need to, I guess, as Christian parents, spend a lot of time in prayer for our children in our season of parenting, because that season's going to pass. That child's going to be an adult. We never stop being parents, but the season of being able to input
parenting part.
Yes. That is what those kids need to enter adulthood. So if we look at frustrated parents with adult children that just aren't getting anywhere, sometimes we need to just have a look at, so what's the role, that we played in them. And especially that thing that you spoke now, Claudia, of the learned helplessness, is enabling children not to be responsible. It's, not giving them those tasks they need to achieve into adulthood, allowing them to make decisions, allowing them to make mistakes, releasing them when they need to be released, that sort of thing.
And not fixing, and not, I see that often. And I find when there's learned helplessness and it's a helicopter parenting, I'm just going to make the problem go away for my child. It's often because the parent have their own attachment deficits or traumas, or so, what will the people say? If the project isn't perfect, or he's not first in the grade, what will the people say? So it's not about your child, it's about you. It's a reflection of my parenting, which, so to have that future view, that every single thing we do it's raising the next generation. You're not raising a boy, you're raising a father. You're not raising a boy, you're raising a husband. You're not raising a boy, you're raising an employer or employee. It's important,
Yeah. Okay. So thanks, this was really good. I always enjoy chatting. Even I love talking about attachment. And you also touched on a subject earlier, emotional regulation. And I think maybe that should be our next talk, because it goes very nicely hand in hand with this, because a lot of parents struggle with, what is this emotional regulation? How do I help my child to regulate their emotions? Because we need to be that for our children.
Yes.
And if we can't,
regulation isn't fixing, so it's still, that'd be a good topic.
Because even in adulthood, you can see this play out, that there are lots of adults that have no emotional regulation, that just don't get what's going on. So it's a good topic to bring up, I think, for next time. But for now, thank you everybody that's tuned in. And if you want to know a bit more about Corlia, you can go to the Lines Arise website. She's on there, or you can Google www.aquilacs.co.za.
You remember?
I remember. It was our practice, which I fondly remember, but it's flying now with her. And so I encourage you, if you're in the Blouberg, Cape Town area, look her up. And so Corlia, thanks a lot for the chat today. Appreciate your time.
Great.
And we'll chat next time again.
Yes. Have a nice day, Tammy.
Okay, cool.
Bye-bye.